Hey kids, it is time once again for the live taping of Podcast Pontifications. Thanks for joining me. What is today? Wednesday. Happy Wednesday on the program. Today's topic is going to be celebrating. That's a weird way to make my voice. Let's not do that again. Celebrating your podcast's reviews like a boss. Does anybody say like a boss anymore? I'm not sure that's still a thing, but I'm going to say like a boss. Sounds like something I want to say. So therefore, I'm going to say it. If you are brand new to the program, this is not actually the podcast. This is me warming up. This is me getting my pipes, those things, cleared out, ready to go. It's also my time to say hello to the handful of people who like to watch me as I do this live. So if you are watching on the LinkedIn or the YouTubes or the Twitters or the Facebooks, you may feel free to say something to me nice. I'll see that chat before I begin. There's no we. I am doing all this. I appreciate you watching. I'm in a weird mood today. This is all preamble type stuff. The actual real live program where I talk about celebrating your podcast's reviews like a boss will be coming forth in just a moment. I'm going to refresh Restream because it looks a little funky to me. Not convinced it's working right, but now perhaps it would be. I use Restream to get this out to various channels. Funky to me. Yeah, there it is. Looking fine now. We're all good. How's that chat window going? All right, that's still working fine as well. So if you want to sit for me getting the warm-up all stuff done, I appreciate that. I know some people like to watch. Some days I get, 5 or 6 people watching me do this live. But hey, it's super early. I get it. A lot of people are on the West Coast, and it's 7 o'clock in the morning for us out here. Not what you're thinking about. Hey, I want some deep insight about podcasting. 7 o'clock in the morning, said no one ever. But the cool thing is this gets published at Podcast Pontifications at 10 o'clock, which people are actually awake then. Podcast Pontifications is where the edited version of this will be. This is just the beginning. Good morning, Kevin Patton. Nice to see you here, sir. Thank you for being here with me. Also, kind of exciting, I'll say this to people watching it live. If you have been saying, man, I have heard that advancing podcasting community sponsorship message at the beginning of every program, and I am sick to death of it. I hear you, man. I hear you. It was really just a way for me to kind of test the waters of doing things, and it worked out pretty well. Good news for you. You won't hear that ad anymore. Nope. All gone. Because I have a new sponsor. Yay! My Podcast Reviews at mypodcastreviews.com /PP, by the way. There's a promo code in the actual episode. It's a service ran by a friend of mine, Daniel J. Lewis. He's ran it for a very long time, and it does ratings and reviews. So Dan has graciously offered to sponsor Podcast Pontifications for this month, September 2021. So you hear that message at the beginning of every single episode. Again, thank you, Daniel J. Lewis. And podcast, if you want the deal, mypodcastreviews.com /PP gets you a 3-week free trial. He always gives you a free trial, I believe, but now that's 3 solid weeks. So pretty cool. And he's done a lot of enhancements to that. Anyhow, that was kind of the impetus behind today's show. Today's episode is going to be all about reviews because I think they're cool. I think they're overblown. I think they're misunderstood, but they can be pretty powerful things. So that's what I want to talk about today, ways that we can celebrate the reviews our podcast get like a boss. So not just one long ad for My Podcast Reviews. Nope, that's a 50-second ad you're going to hear. Not an ad, a sponsorship message. It's not ads. I don't sell advertising, but I do have people that sponsor the show. That's good. Okay, so I think with that, I'm just going to begin. I think I'm good to go. How did my lighting look? Not too bad. Yeah, that's all right. I can handle that. I can deal with that. If you can deal with that, let's move over here and grab all the things I need to think. So where happened to QuickTime Player? Oh, it's all the way up there. Let's move it down where it needs to be. Let me go grab the article itself, or not the article, the outline of the program. Here it is. Let's slide it over sort of next to the camera so I can read my cold open and do a rehearsal. Here we go. Cold open, take one. Glowing, let's not do that. Glowing. I just got a message on. Do I care about this message? I probably do not, but just to double check it. Nope, I don't care about it. Okay. Glowing podcast reviews feel really, really good. Getting any benefits from them beyond a warm, fuzzy feeling is questionable. Unless you have a plan for celebrating reviews for your podcast, that is. Yep, that's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say it right now. Once I get QuickTime back up here again. Okay, hitting record now. Glowing podcast reviews feel really, really good, but getting any benefits from them beyond a warm, fuzzy feeling is questionable, unless you have a plan for celebrating reviews for your podcast, that is. Hello and welcome to another Podcast Pontifications with me, Evo Terra. Now, if you fast-forwarded through the sponsorship message at the beginning of today's episode, A, I understand, but B, you missed out. We have a brand new sponsor. That sponsor, thanks again, Daniel, that sponsor provides a service to help you get more and track all of the reviews for your podcast. But why? What's the point? I mean, ratings and reviews are a thing, sure, but they don't really influence anything important, do they? Well, maybe. First, it's true. We have no evidence to support the notion that more favorable ratings or reviews for your podcast will cause your podcast, the listing of your podcast, the ranking of your podcast to go up or down in any algorithmic-based top 200 list or whatever. In fact, the opposite is true. We have ample evidence that goes against that very notion. Often that evidence comes directly from the mouths of the people responsible for writing and maintaining those ranking algorithms. But reviews do have an influence, maybe even an oversized influence, on something more important than ranking algorithms. That thing that's more important? Human beings. Because humans are influenced by reviews. So it's with that notion that I say you should celebrate your reviews. Celebrate them like a boss, in fact. And I think there are three very specific ways any podcaster can celebrate the reviews they get. The first one is celebrating the review in your audio, in the audio of your episode. Now, why would you do that? I mean, people who are already listening to your show know your show is amazing, or else they wouldn't be listening, so what's the point of a review? You're not getting anybody new there. Well, reviews beget reviews. Hearing you read aloud the text of a review, where you also thank the reviewer, ideally by name if you can figure it out, and then saying nice things about them as you mention them by their name, that's a pretty powerful psychological draw. People want to do that. They want to be a part of that. Now, keep in mind, though, that content and consistency are super important in your episode. So be deliberate when you place this little section where you're celebrating reviews. Resist the temptation specifically to celebrate this review very early on in your episodes. Remember, your listeners are here first and foremost for the content you provide, not you patting yourself on the back for a few seconds. So I think you should, as I'm going to do, stick your reviews towards the end of your episode. And yes, I understand that consumption drops off as the episodes progress. That's natural. It happens. But still, we want to be smart. We also want to be judicious with the reviews we actually showcase, right? I mean, if your show is big enough to start, and fortunate enough, I suppose, to start pulling down dozens of reviews between your episodes, you may not want to read every single one of them out. So adjust this advice that fits to you. You also should celebrate them on your website, on your podcast's website. And that's because people will discover your show from a search, from a link they followed somewhere else. They will get to your show's website, and oftentimes, especially if it's done from a search, they'll have no idea you even have a podcast. So when they learn that from visiting your website, don't make them wonder if your podcast is any good. Repurpose that social proof you're getting from the reviews on your website. I add every single review I get to my content management service, my CMS that I use to build my website. That in turn displays the reviews proudly right there on my homepage, along with the date, the name of the reviewer, the platform they reviewed it on. All of that is available. I'm working on a way to add a rotating review box into my episode pages, which get a fair amount of search traffic. But once again, I implore you, be deliberate in your choices. Your website has a job, or maybe several jobs, but the job of the website is to still do the job of the websites. Putting reviews too early or in the wrong place on your website isn't helping your podcast, and it might actually hurt the job your website is there to do. So when in doubt, and when you can, hire a designer with some UX experience, or even better, CX experience, to get it just right. And also, celebrate the reviews on your social channels. I mean, spend any time at all seeking out podcasting info on any social media site, from Twitter all the way to Reddit, and you'll see a flood of "got any good podcast recommendations?" posts. Now, of course, the reach of your own social shares is a function of the size of the people who follow you on that platform, right? And you may not be a big star on any given platform. This technique will still work for you if you can leverage the power of the person who wrote the review. See, when you share the review socially, and I recommend taking a screenshot of the review. Bonus, by the way, if you could turn that into some little cool animated GIF without making it too terribly annoying, but anyhow, tag the person who left the review with their handle on that social media property. And yes, it takes a little bit of sleuthing and research sometimes to figure out the actual person or the social handle of the person who left the review, but it's time well spent. I think it's worth it because you just might get a reshare from that person, which piggybacks on the size then of their audience. Now, by the way, I do all of these things, or at least I try to do these things, or I'm trying to do these things. I've not been really good about sharing reviews on the show here in the episodes, but I'm going to be changing that. For example, here we go. Right now, we'll put this in the Boostagram corner, shall we? A big thanks to Seth Goldstein for leaving me the following review on Podcast Addict. He says, Evo is an expert in the pontification of podcast knowledge. His approach to sharing this knowledge is approachable and enjoyable. I'm so glad I discovered this podcast. Why, thank you, Seth. I, too, am so glad you discovered this podcast. Now, I'm going to be sharing Seth's comments across my social media channels later on this afternoon, and yes, adding it to my website, because I like to eat my own dog food. Now, if you received value out of this episode, and you're using one of those new fancy value for value-enabled apps, I'd really appreciate the sats you're already streaming me. But if you would, hit that boost button, baby, and leave me a message. I'll read it out here on the show. But of course, that's complicated. Yes, I get it. So buymeacoffee.com/evoterra remains the easiest way for you to support the efforts of Podcast Pontifications. That's a place where you can buy me 1, 3, or 5, or whatever number of virtual coffees, or even a recurring virtual coffee support message every single month. Do that. Set it and forget it style. Click of a button. Super easy. With all of that, I shall be back tomorrow with yet another Podcast Pontifications. Cheers. I have turned off all of the recording, and I will go back in there. Hi, Arlen. Good morning, sir. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Arlen, for commenting as you've been watching. I appreciate that. For people who have just tuned in, you missed it. Sure, you could back up 15 minutes and 4 seconds to the very beginning, but you really don't have to do that. I mean, knock yourself out if you want to. This is the live taping of a podcast. The actual finalized product will be available at podcastpontifications.com in 2 hours and 46 minutes. You'll have the audio right there to listen to. You'll also have a fully rewritten article. I'll take every word I just said aloud, and then I will rewrite it into a place that is enjoyable to read. All that'll be done by 10 o'clock today. And for the people who have signed up for Podcast Pontifications in your inbox, free service I provide, just go to the website, click the subscribe button, drop in your email address. You will get sent to you the article that I'm about to rewrite and a link to the audio file so you can consume all of it right there in your email if that's what makes sense to you. And of course, as you know, it's podcast, so it's there in the podcasty places as well. Thanks once again to this month's sponsor, mypodcastreviews.com/pp. Go to mypodcastreviews.com/pp and save big. Well, you get a 3-week free trial of this service. So if you're not tracking your ratings and reviews, because that's a pain in the butt, especially with all the places they can do it, My Podcast Reviews is pretty good, and thank you very much once again, Daniel J. Lewis, for sponsoring Podcast Pontifications this month. I appreciate it. Hi, Heather. Nice to see you here. You're very welcome. I'm glad you got good content. With that, I'm going to go. I got to go to a doctor's appointment today. Nothing wrong. I just didn't do my 1-year checkup on time, so now I'm late, and I need to get it done. So I'm going to go see my doc today, make sure things are all still groovy and fine, which they probably are. And I'll do this thing tomorrow for you guys. Want to see it? I'll be here. Will you? See you guys then. Bye.